Depending on what era you became a Batman fan, the Joker can look very differently. Is he a methodical yet elaborate gangster who has no problem with eliminating his enemies? Is he a lethal prankster who just wants to baffle those he is challenging? Or is he a violent sadist who wants to laugh in the emptiness of the world and insert a little anarchy into the lives of the people of Gotham City? However you see Batman's worst enemy, it very much depends on the medium that introduced you to the Batman, or more specifically to the Joker. And some people have asked the question, which one is it? Is it all three, and sometimes the Joker is just one or the other depending on how he wakes up in the morning? But one miniseries dared to ask the question, what if these three interpretations of the Joker were three different Jokers? And that is how we got the DC Comics Black Label comic Batman 3 Jokers, a comic 4 years in the making. Hi, I'm Jacob Berry, and welcome to the StudioJake vidcast. Hi everyone, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe right here on StudioJake. Be sure to help me because I'm trying to reach 2,500 subs. All right, so for those of you who don't know, the three Jokers were actually teased way back at the end of the New 52 in an event called the Dark Side War. What happened is the Justice League went to war with the forces of Darkseid from Apocalypse, and Batman managed to sit on the Mobius chair. Now, usually a character named Metron sits on the Mobius chair, and he is like this arbiter of all knowledge and wisdom. Somehow he got knocked off and Batman sat there, and to test it, he asked it, who killed my parents? And of course it said Joe Chill. Correct. He then asked, what is the Joker's true name? It pinged him back. We don't see the answer, but Batman reacts with, that's impossible, before getting interrupted. A month later, maybe 2 months later, in the summer of 2016, Green Lantern flies into the Batcave during the DC Universe Rebirth and asked him about what the Mobius chair said about the Joker. The Batman kind of wants to give Green Lantern the, brush off, but Hal Jordan isn't having it. And he says, it does matter. He's one of the most violent villains in our planet. We need to know. And so Batman finally reveals to the Green Lantern that the Mobius chair told him that there are three Jokers. So DC writer Jeff Johns partnered with Jason Fabok, who is a very talented artist, to bring us a miniseries, and it got delayed a lot. And no one really knows why. It's been debated over time, but it got delayed for 4 years and then finally came out in 2020. Unfortunately, the DC Rebirth was also starting to come to an end. It was wrapping up due to really poor sales, due to what was going on in Tom King's Batman and the Heroes in Crisis debacle. DC Comics decided to end the DC Rebirth and bring in something new with what is called the Death Metal arc, where it was kind of a sequel to Dark Knight Metal and whatnot. It was bringing in and was introducing this concept that there are, because of all the different floating timelines, that everything in the DC universe is canon, but not everything is history, is basically the idea behind it. So because of the delay of the publishing of the three Jokers, Jeff Johns published it through what is called the Black Label. Now, the Black Label is supposed to be for mature audiences, and again, it did not get off to a great start. Most of the titles are Batman titles. Some of them are reprinted older story arcs, just reprinted under the Black Label. Three Jokers was one of these that got picked because, like I said, DC Rebirth, that introduced the concept of the three Jokers, it was coming to an end. Depends on who you ask. Some people say it is canon, and some people say it isn't. When I first got a hold of these comics, I was so excited. And one of the things that it did was each part had a different Joker. So it would be the criminal, then the clown, and then the comedian, and more on the differences later. And they each headline one. And then they did a variant cover. They did several variant covers, by the way, but just, as far as the main ones, where it was Batman, Red Hood, aka the second Robin, Jason Todd, and then Batgirl. And as you know, both Jason Todd and Barbara Gordon had very traumatic experiences with the Joker. Jason Todd, of course, was murdered by the Joker, and Barbara Gordon, of course, was paralyzed for a time, both of them coming back from that through varying means and alterations of the canon, but we won't get into that. And I was very excited about this. The gist of the story is that the three Jokers have finally decided to work together. Normally they work while one of them is in prison or presumed dead and the other one takes over, and that is to explain why they are different Jokers. So for instance, the criminal Joker, he is more of a strategist. And by the way, it actually hurts him when he laughs, which is why he wants to make people laugh when they die. He wants them to share his pain. The clown is more unpredictable. He's more of a prankster, deadly traps. He's also the one that killed Jason Todd. And then, of course, we have the comedian, who is more of what you might think of the Mark Hamill Joker. Now, Mark Hamill's Joker is kind of a combination of the comedian and the criminal, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. He is a sadist. He wants to just hurt people to insert anarchy. He wants to look at the blankness of life and laugh at it and bring a few people with him to the jaws of death. And he specifically wants Batman to break his one rule, to kill him. He has been connected specifically to the Scott Snyder era Joker, the one behind Death of the Family and Endgame. So all that to say, I was very excited. This art follows the three of them working together to try to break the Batman. They're trying to create more Jokers to kind of throw Batman off, and then they also want to turn Joe Chill into a Joker, and Batman decides to work with Red Hood and Batgirl to try to stop them. It becomes like this very ongoing emotional quest. Batman is very surprised by how different they operate, yet they're all still the Joker. And they even hint that the three of them might have created other versions of the Joker at some point, again, to throw Batman off on who actually is the Joker. And after the capture of Joe Chill, Batman kind of has this, existential crisis about it and what it means. But then he learns that because the clown gets killed by Jason Todd, they want to turn Joe Chill into another Joker. So Batman goes to confront the criminal specifically, but then, shockingly, the criminal gets killed by the comedian, who immediately surrenders. And Batman has a moment of forgiveness with Joe Chill. Joker says, "I've now healed you of this, and so now I can be your primary focus." And Alfred says, "Well, we never will know who the Joker is." And Batman says, "I know who the Joker is. I've known all this time, but I can't reveal his real name because I'm worried that his wife and son are in danger." And by the way, this is a connection to the Red Hood origin about a struggling comedian who becomes a patsy wearing a red hood and ends up falling in the vat of chemicals at Ace Chemical. And it appears that neither Joker knows which one is the first. It could have been the comedian, it could have been the criminal, it could have been the clown. Neither or none of them know. So I was very excited about this. I loved this story. I thought it was great. I thought it was solid. I thought it had a lot of potential. But I soon found out that I was actually in the minority of this. By the way, if you don't believe me, you think I did not like this series for some reason, I literally have the shirt. I literally have all three of the Jokers, and then, of course, the collected edition besides the individual issues. Two of versions of the individual issues, by the way, because I have the Batman, Red Hood, Batgirl cover, the comedian, the clown, and the criminal covers as well. As I said, I found myself in the minority. Now, there's several YouTube videos discussing why they thought the Three Jokers was a bad retcon or it was poor, and I'm going to break down like the main ones that I have seen. So the first one is it was delayed. It took 4 years to come out, and I actually agree with this. I don't know why it was delayed. The same thing happened to the Doomsday Clock. For some reason, DC Comics during the Black Label era, they were really going through a lot of delays. It may have been because artists and writers were quitting, so they had to bring on others to take over. But this was pretty important. Like I said, they introduced it as part of the DC Universe rebirth, but it did get delayed. And this is one I kind of understand, but I also sometimes think that it's not like it was a pre-order campaign or an Indiegogo campaign where the person says, I'll have this out in a month, and you put money toward it, but then it never comes out. It's not like that. They just teased it, so you don't lose any money. So while the delay does bother me, it wasn't like how a lot of people were describing it. If anything, it built up anticipation for me. Another big complaint is that there was no hype behind it. It was really just planned to come out around the same time as some movies that were coming out, and that there was no actual hype for the comic. I can say for a fact this isn't true. YouTubers can go back in hindsight and look at things. But I remember shopping and going around and going to Comic-Cons. People were excited about the Three Jokers. There was hype around it. So, like I said, YouTubers who most of them don't even buy or read comic books, they want to say this, oh, the Three Jokers, it was a bad retcon. Now, to be fair, there are comic book fan YouTubers who thought there was no hype around it for whatever reason. Maybe it was different in their area, but I was in Los Angeles at the time, and that's a big comic book market, especially because the DC headquarters is in Burbank. And I can say for a fact that there was hype around it. There was not no hype. People were excited about this, and I think that the sales numbers kind of bear that out. And so another one is people don't like Jeff Johns. Now, a lot of people, it's like this because he is seen as the person who ruined the Justice League movie, even though I would argue it was already ruined because for some reason they got Zack Snyder to do the original DC Extended Universe. But Jeff Johns is kind of seen as the guy who messed with the plan when it came to the Snyderverse, and that just was not true. He inherited a mess and he had to work with the mess. It might be true he didn't like Zack Snyder, but I'm finding out that's kind of a recurring thing with Zack Snyder. After you work with him, people don't even like him. Even Netflix is getting tired of him. So a lot of it's not really about the story. It's just Jeff Johns is attached to this because he wrote it. And that is unfair criticism, in my opinion. Jeff Johns is a very talented writer. I actually wish DC Comics would bring him back because their current crop of DC writers have just been horrible. And last but not least, people kind of don't like how Batman came full circle with Joe Chill. It seems that Batman forgiving Chill puts a damper in his crusade, but I don't agree with that. I think that it shows Batman has matured as a crime fighter, that he is willing to forgive in the right circumstance. Because it's not like Joe Chill was like how he was in Batman Brave and the Bold, where he was like going to rat out Batman to his other enemies. And then, of course, the Spectre and the Phantom Stranger got involved with that whole story. That's another thing. It wasn't like that, where it would have justified Batman ending his life and whatnot. But to me, it shows that Batman has matured past that. And also his vow to his parents wasn't, I'm going to go until the end of Joe Chill. He said that he was going to protect Gotham so that other people wouldn't go through the trauma that he went through. Now, there are other criticisms, but those to me seem like the main ones, and I just wanted to address those. But now on to something even bigger. Why did I like it? I can say, oh yeah, it was this, that, and the other, and this person, I disagree with them, this, that, and the other. But did I actually like it? And the answer is yes. Not just because I bought all the products, including the DC Fandom shirt. I liked it because I think it overall is good. And to begin with, the artwork by Fabic is incredible. My only criticism of it was, except for the criminal, sometimes it was a little hard to tell the comedian and the clown apart. The criminal was easier because he actually wore like a suit and would always wear his famous hat, which was made famous by Batman the Animated Series. The Joker in that series would wear that wide-brimmed purple hat. So it was easy for him to stand out. And also they would draw him a little older since he was based on the Golden Era Joker primarily. But sometimes it was a little hard. I wish they would have given the clown and the comedian a little bit more distinct looks, but that's just my opinion. Also, I know that kind of takes you out of how could people mistake one for the other, but still, just for the sake of this story, it would have made sense to me if they wore different clothing or had different hairstyles, whatever the case may be. Otherwise, it is solid. Batman's outfit is amazing. It looks incredible. How he draws Jason Todd is probably one of the best illustrations. Now they have Jason Todd having a mask that goes down like this. It's like a visor instead of his full-on helmet. I think that's dumb. This one keeps the helmet version of his outfit. It looks incredible. And of course, Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, is amazing in this. She looks very cool. It is definitely a design based on her New 52 outfit, which is black with a golden bat, and it looks really incredible. They did fantastic. Jason did an incredible job, as well as the colorist who worked on it with him. I just think that it is superb in how they do the designs. And when you see the people who are infected with the Joker virus, it's horrifying. They do a good job of sending chills down your spine as far as that. So the artwork, especially the covers, give A+ rating. I also like how they had the character arcs. It shows Jason and Barbara kind of trauma bonding over their shared experiences with the Joker, even hints a little bit at a romantic potential relationship, especially with Nightwing gallivanting with the Teen Titans. I thought that that was interesting. It was normally I don't like ships, but that was actually a ship I could get behind. Jason Todd being with Barbara Gordon. At least they didn't do that weird Bruce Timm with Bruce Wayne and Barbara. That was super weird. All that to say, I liked it. And I especially liked Batman arc. Now, Batman did appear a little more methodical in this series than he usually is when facing the Joker, especially if you read the New 52 era Batman. This is a more focused Batman. He's paying more attention. He's kind of being more stoic in this one. And it makes sense. He wants to figure out the mystery behind the three Jokers. I also thought the themes in it were very well done. Themes of justice versus vengeance, themes of healing, surviving trauma, and exploring forgiveness and what that could mean and what it could look like for Gotham City. I thought that that was very impressive. It really told a grand story. And none of that is more important than how the three Jokers were portrayed. Let's start with the criminal. And if you need a more solid version of what he might look like, you could definitely turn to the Tim Burton directed 80s Batman film where Jack Nicholson portrayed the Joker, more of a gangster who's very elaborate, who faced a very harsh origin, and he wants to bring a smile to people's faces, but a permanent grin that doesn't go away. That is the criminal. He wants to accomplish his goals. And like I said, it hurts for him to laugh, and he wants people to feel that pain. That is a very dark version of although all versions of the Joker are dark, with maybe the exception of the Cesar Romero version, but you get what I'm trying to say. He is more operating in the shadows. He's not as big on huge gestures as the other two are. He just wants to show people that he's the smartest guy in the room and the funniest guy in the room. The Clown. Now, if I was to put a face to the name of that one, I would say the Joker is how he's portrayed in The Batman, not the movie, but the TV show, which aired on Kids WB, where Reno Romano voiced Batman and Kevin Michael Richardson voiced the Joker. He is more of a lethal prankster who just wants to cause general chaos and also bring on the laughs. It's all about that kind of score point. Like I said, he more wants to baffle the Batman. And while he is not afraid to take lives, it is not high on his priority. It is more about just accomplishing the caper and hoping that he puts a deadly smile on people's faces. The Comedian, and again, he is definitely tied to the Scott Snyder era with Death of the Family and with Endgame, but he is definitely what I would position as probably the Joker from The Dark Knight. So Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker. He wants anarchy. He wants chaos. That is how he is. Oh, the Arkham games. That's another great way to look at him. He is connected to the Arkham game version of the Joker. He wants people to laugh to death, even if he has to force it on you. That is how he is. And like I said, the Mark Hamill version of the Joker from Batman the Animated Series, he's kind of a combination of the clown and the comedian. And I feel like that is where it works. Like they took the less lethal version of the clown, but then also took in the darker aspects of the comedian and merged them to create the Mark Hamill version. And they are done so incredibly well. And like I said, I wish that they had done a more artistic difference between the clown and the comedian, but I do like how they show how each of these Jokers had a different emotional impact on Batman. So the criminal, he forces Batman to face the hypocrisies and the holes in the justice system. The clown, he is the one who hurt Jason Todd and would do it again. He mocks and laughs at Batman and the absurdity of his constant search for justice. The comedian, he is the one who paralyzed Barbara Gordon, and he is the one who is responsible for multiple massacres. He's a serial killer, a sadist who laughs at death and finds joy in it. That is a very cool measuring point on the Joker's relationship with the Batman. Unfortunately, because it's Black Label, it's not really considered canon, especially with the end of the DC Rebirth. It's not part of the new continuum. Like I said, death metal kind of made it where everything is continuity and you can just pick and choose. I personally think that's dumb. This is why manga wins, honestly, because manga has just a straightforward timeline, with maybe some loose retcons later on, depending on the mangakai. But this is why people do. They do these massive events where they change history and they do it too often. Really, an event like that should only happen once a decade. But for some reason, there was only 4 years between New 52 and the DC Rebirth. It was way too short. They should have let the New 52 get a little bit stronger, but whatever. However you look at this, you may disagree with me, and please let me know in the comments. Do you disagree with me? Do you not like the 3 Jokers? Did you think it was a bad retcon? Like I said, I think it was a good retcon. I think it was a good take on the Joker. I thought it was a solid story. And it's a shame that recently Chip Zdarsky's run on Batman, he tried to more retcon it as opposed to being 3 physically different Jokers. It was just 3 personalities, and the Joker would switch to one depending on how he felt. And they even hint at one point that there are 3 different Jokers because of a ridiculous multiverse event that happens. Now, I don't want to criticize Chip Zdarsky too much. I'm not a big fan of his writing. His run on Spider-Man was disastrous, and same for Batman. But I will say that his Batman 900 was one of the best comic book stories I've ever read. I thought it was really good. I did a whole video on that if you want to check that out. That also involves the Joker, which is why I bring it up. I personally think you either do the 3 Jokers, like how Jeff Johns did it, with 3 physically different Jokers who Batman sometimes gets confused on which one he's fighting and why he's fighting them, or you do it where it's 1 Joker and just the caper calls for it being less lethal than the other. I think you should go big or go home with this concept. Don't make it where it's like some weird thing where the Joker goes to sleep and wakes up as the other one. That's dumb. The Joker's not mentally ill. He's just evil. He's just an evil sadist who laughs at the hurt in the world, and he wants the world to hurt so he can laugh more. That is the Joker. You can disagree with me in the comments, but that's how I feel about it. And that is why I love Batman 3 Jokers, because Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok really brought that tale out. I appreciate you watching the video today. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Help me reach 2,500 subscribers. That would really be cool of you. I would really appreciate it. If you want to support me in the work that I do, check out my website. The link is in the description of the video, studiojakemedia.substack.com. You can subscribe there. That's the best way to support me. Or you can buy one of my books. I have links on that same website where you can do that. So definitely check those out. I've got 4 out right now. Get one or all of them and leave me a 5-star review. It really helps out small indie creators like myself. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.